We are live. We are going to call this one episode 76 of the Athletic Philosopher podcast. We are up into the PK Subban, into the PK Subban numbers. Shout out to all my Blue, Blanc, et Rouge fans and hockey fans out there. Welcome to the Athletic Philosopher podcast. I am your humble host, Jordan Goldstein. We are at once recording, but also live here on Substack. So I want to say what's up to all my Substack peeps, and I just want to give a big welcome to everybody listening out there in podcast land or watching on YouTube later on. I am very excited about today's episode, but let me get some of the clerical matters out of the way. I used to be a university professor in the world of sport history, philosophy, sociology, and psychology. The university and I, we had issues with each other, we'll say. Is a polite way to put it. And I certainly don't profess anymore in the university, but I do profess now in the pod, also over on my socials, short ideas on X, longer ideas on Substack. And what do we do now? We are deep in the world of coaching, fitness coaching, life coaching, intertwined, endurance training coaching, ultramarathon coaching, gigantic physical challenge to orient and change the trajectory of your life training, dream coaching, effectively using the body as a bit of a trapdoor into the mind and the spirit so that we can take the truth of what we do in the physical realm and encourage the mind and encourage the spirit to go after that best potential, body, mind, and spirit, all intertwined. So I have a host of one-on-one clients that I coach. I also have my own fitness community. We call it The Temple, where we're all aiming our exercise towards what I will call a spiritual purpose, so that we can utilize the body to gain knowledge of ourselves, so that we can in turn master ourselves, and that we can harness this willpower that is so visceral and real in sports, but so amorphous and hard to define out there in so many other areas of our life. So we've got an entire community of people. Oh, I got my first here live question on Substack, so this is amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Burton Raphael. Would the spiritual purpose even be for non-religious people? Absolutely. That's a great question. And specifically, my group is a non-denominational group, and we have agnostics. I'm not sure if there's an atheist or two in there, but they could be. I'm Jewish, but I like to approach this from the viewpoint of comparative religion, not from any particular religion, but to figure out like what the good religions of the world all have in common. So the spiritual purpose of exercise, it could directly be related to your like particular religion, but it's much more of this idea of getting in contact with the essence of who I am on the inside, talking about the spirit, the soul, maybe like the part of me that's real but can't be measured, touched, or felt from the outside, but certainly can be experienced and felt and then acted upon from the inside. So I hope that answers your question there, Raphael, but it's a great question. And this group that I run, The Temple, it's all about using sport as this self-knowing tool. And that's really the spiritual element, is like I want to know about myself. I want to probe deeply inside to figure out the truth of who I am by tapping into this like inner signal or conscience or divine spark, whatever that is in your language, doesn't matter. It's in there. We all know we all know it's in there. Makes sense. Yeah, answers well. Thank you. I appreciate the answer. And if the question, if anybody on Substack wants to just completely bomb with questions, let's go. Let's make this as interactive as possible. And if you're listening and you want to get in on some of the live action, then follow me on Substack and see when the next live episode is going to be. I also do mindset, performance, and endurance coaching on the excellent tribal training with the excellent Ryan Dreyer, who is the head coach of that. And this is for people who want to really dive into the world of heavy endurance training to take on things like ultra marathons and Ironman triathlons, and a little bit more of a structured training and team environment. The group that I run, it's kind of like for anybody in any kind of fitness. Team Tribal, that's like just endurance racing. And it's got its own ecosystem there. So I'm going to put the links to everything in the show notes. So links to my socials so you can follow along, links to apply to join Tribal, because I'm going to be talking a lot about that team in today's episode. Or if you want to get in contact with me to inquire about coaching opportunities for yourself, whether that's within the fitness community or in a more one-on-one capacity, all that's going to be in the show notes. So do not be a stranger. If you at all want to reach out for anything, just like the people who are listening live here and attending live, I'm an open guy. So get in contact with me, and let's work on using fitness to make your life incredible. And I'm going to talk today about my own process in fitness. Now, I've gone back and forth on how I kind of want to tell the story. And I'm just going to tell it as many different ways as possible. So this episode is all about how I am training and building towards my very first triathlon. And this is not going to be a typical, all right, here is my block, here's how many times I'm biking and why, and these are the drills, and this is my fueling. There's going to be some technical elements of this, but mostly it is a mindset preparation. And it's a way that I want to explore, explain, and showcase this very intuitive, creative, artistic, using fitness as a meaningful expression of my true self style of training that I've been experimenting with for coming up to like 14 years myself, and that I've been helping other people in a coaching capacity acquire in their own lives through the past 3 to 4 years that I've been doing this coaching thing. And so this is really going to be a wide open expanse into both the heart and the mind of how I go about executing a training plan, creating a training plan, crafting it, modifying it, adapting it, and really, I think, setting the groundwork for anybody out there to pick a gigantic physical challenge they may or may not be ready for, and how you can, on your own, creatively, imaginatively come up with a way to have success in whatever competition, whatever big thing you want to go after. So it's a little bit about goal setting. It's a little bit about foresight and preparation. It's also about tapping into that creative element within you and using fitness as a true canvas. We'll call it true canvas for artistic expression. And just to go back to that question about the spirituality, one of the ways in which we know we are activating our spirits is if we are engaged in the act of creation, and that creation is simply being driven by this internal desire, this intrinsic motivation. Like, I just want to create because I demand to create something beautiful. I was just noodling around on my guitar right before this to kind of get me into the headspace. And it wasn't to write this amazing riff so that I can, write a song and then sell records or whatever. It was just because I love playing the guitar. I love it. And noodling around on the guitar, it just makes me alive, and it brings out a better version of myself than when I'm not playing guitar. So similarly, that's how we want to approach fitness. Okay. Now this, if you want to figure out why I'm doing triathlon this year, I have a whole podcast episode on this, which we call the Year of the Race. And if you want to even go back further, I have an entire podcast, not just on how I selected the races this year for 2026, but I have one on how I selected the races for last year, for 2025. And if you go back, I even have an episode, and I know this because I linked to it in one of my Substack articles. It's episode 6, all the way back, 70 episodes ago. I laid out how I philosophically prepare for a competition, and that was in advance of the 2024 Prairie on Fire Backyard Ultra. I'm wearing the shirt from last year. 2025, but I got my wood medallion right here from 2024. So if you're interested in sort of the genesis of how I go about selecting races and how I philosophically approach a race, which I'm going to touch on a little bit here, but not quite as in depth as those other podcasts, go check those out. I'll also link those in the show notes page if I can remember. You know, I was a flighty prof at one point in my life, so you can forgive me. You can forgive me if I don't have those ones in there. Okay. Now, I'm also writing on Substack about this, and I'm doing a series as well, and I'm calling it Imagining My Way to My First Triathlon. Okay? And here is the basic way in which I prepare myself for any big physical challenge. I start with, what is the task at hand? What is the task at hand? And then I reverse engineer from that. And sure, like, we can start with the physical. Okay, so what am I doing? I'm doing a 70.3 triathlon. That's a half Ironman. So what do I need to do? I need to swim in open water for 1.2 miles. Then I've got to transition out, right? I got to get out of the water. I got to run to where I'm going to have a bike. And then I'm going to have to get on the bike and pedal 56 miles. And then after I'm pedaled the 56 miles, I come back in. I got to transition off my bike. I got to get my running shoes on. And then I got to go and run a half marathon, 13.1 miles. So physically then, it's clear what I have to do. I got to swim, I got to bike, and I got to run. Triathlon. Simple. Okay? But that's not how I think about it. I don't think just in terms of the physical. I think about it in this embodied sense of, what is it actually going to take to, if I bring my body and my mind and my spirit together, because ultimately, like, that's what I am, and I talked a lot about this in the previous episode with Dr. Pearl there. But if that's what I'm going to be bringing in terms of myself, well, then I actually need to know a little bit more about triathlon. I need to know specifically, what does triathlon ask of me as an entire person? Not just of my body, but my mind and my spirit too. And this goes to one of the deep core fundamental beliefs that I have, that is a fundamental, it's a cornerstone building block of my athletic philosophy here, is that the ways in which we move are related to the virtues that we hold dear. Let me say that again. The ways in which we move are related to the virtues we hold dear. Now let me make that a little more specific. The movements that interest us, the movements that excite us, the movements that we enjoy are directly related to the virtues we hold dearest, or virtues that we are hoping to generate within ourselves. So I'll restate that. The ways in which we are interested, excited, and enjoy moving are directly related to the virtues that we hold dear or recognize we need more of. Okay? Now, I'm going to use myself here. My favorite sport is ice hockey. Okay? My favorite sport is ice hockey. I think golf is the best sport in the world, but my favorite sport is ice hockey. And I could do it with both these sports, but I'll just do it with ice hockey because that's kind of my domain here, being an ex-hockey historian. What is the number one virtue? What is the number one virtue in ice hockey? And when I say what is the number one virtue, I mean, what is the number one positive characteristic that is going to alert me to the success that I need to win in hockey? What is it? And some of the ideas that might automatically flood into your mind might be something like strength or speed or ferocity, resiliency. These are all important qualities and important virtues of hockey, but it's not the most important. The most important virtue in ice hockey is loyalty. The most important virtue in ice hockey is loyalty. This is why it's the best team sport, because a team should be the most loyal to itself, right? The players should want to play for each other. The players should sacrifice individual glory at times for the sake of team success. And you do not see this in any other sport like hockey, because the number one virtue is loyalty. This is a fast-paced, violent, high-contact sport played with fast line changes on the fly. Many people all kind of doing the same thing. Like, there's not a great differentiator between the skills you need as a defenseman and the skills you need as a forward, for example. It's not like a catcher in baseball versus a shortstop in baseball, or a quarterback in football versus a lineman in football. Like, they're not drastically different skills. So everybody basically is doing the same thing, except for the goalie. But the goalie is actually a perfect illustrator of this loyalty concept, because the goalie is defenseless in hockey. Side note, this is why the ice hockey goalie is the most courageous and toughest of all the athletes. And you might say, well, what about boxers? What about people that fight? Okay, but when I enter a ring to fight, I get to hit back. A goalie just has to eat rubber. A goalie just eats all of the pain, and they're not allowed to fight back. So imagine if I told you to go into the octagon, but you were never allowed to punch back. That's kind of like what being a goalie is, okay? So you have to face all the violence, and you never get the punch back. Very difficult. It's a very difficult thing. And so the loyalty is like, if anybody on the opposing team touches my goalie, they're going to have to deal with every single person on my team, because we cannot tolerate that. We are loyal to the goalie. This is like the biggest thing in hockey right now, is the fact that one of the biggest stars in the game got taken out by a dirty cheap shot, and nobody on his team did anything. And this was like, what is wrong with them? And it's sent like a shockwave through the league, where now teams are remembering, oh my gosh, it's actually loyalty that's the most important thing. It's like, we're coming up to the playoffs. And what is it that wins in hockey at the most important time of the year? Is it speed? Is it skill? Is it the flashy moves? No. It's the team that is willing to eat the most pain. The team that is willing to eat the most pain is the team that wins. And the team that eats the most pain is the team that is the most loyal to each other, because I'm going to take a hit to make a play for my teammate. I'm going to take this hit so that we can run out the clock. I'm going to block this shot with my face. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I will sacrifice my body to do whatever it takes for the team. So loyalty is the number one thing. What's my number one virtue? My number one virtue is like family. That's the number one thing to me. And there's a lot of reasons why family is the number one thing. But to me, it's the way that I can embody and live out one of the most important spiritual and religious commandments of my people, the Jews. Commandment number 4, honor thy mother and father. Okay? This is like, the threading of the generations is an extremely important element in Judaism. We're also like a tribal religion. So loyalty within the tribe is a big deal. Loyalty to your family, gigantic deal. You know, I'm going to drive back with my 2 kids in a week to take them just to go see family that they're not able to see, because we moved to the States and it's difficult for us to see each other. Right? So I live out the highest virtue by, being the stay-home dad, by taking care of the kids, by allowing my wife to go out and work because she's passionate about it, and it drives her forward. Whereas I'm the guy who wants to make sure everybody in the family is at their best, and I don't mind sacrificing a little bit of what I have to do for myself in order to make that happen. So that's just like one way in which we can understand this idea that, the sports that you love are drawn to the virtues that you hold dear. And I think this is the same with all art form, to tell you the truth, because art is like this window into the soul. So the art that you like is going to reveal a tremendous amount about you. So I believe sports are artistic expressions, so this makes perfect sense. So then, what's triathlon? What is triathlon really? Triathlon, number one, is an endurance event, okay? So the number one thing in any endurance event is recognizing what the true challenge is. The true challenge is not the physical. The true challenge is always the mental in an endurance. It's always the mental and the spiritual, because endurance doesn't start until I want to quit. Endurance doesn't start until I want to quit. Anybody can run until they don't want to run and then they stop. Anybody can bike until they don't want to bike anymore and then they stop. Same thing with swimming, okay? It's when I have to keep going, but I don't want to keep going. That's the most important thing in any endurance race, is to cultivate that willpower muscle, right? That connection between the mind and the heart that says, oh my gosh, I'm in pain, I am hurting, I really want to stop. How do I press ahead? How do I continue to move forward? That is the most important thing. So it's like, then what is the most important virtue? Let me bring up my Substack article here so I can not talk too many out of too many sides of my mouth here. I'll link this too. It's not this one. We love to do things live here. We love to do things right. Imagining the build to Chattanooga. Let's go. Post. Okay. Let me just take a quick peek at the virtues that I did. Yeah, okay. This is great. So again, it's like, what is the race? What is the competition? What is the 70.3? It's first off, it's a race. Second off, it's a long race. Third, it's 3 sports. Fourth, each sport has its own nature and demands. 5, triathlon has its own unique demand on top of all these 3 sports. So the way I actually think about these things is like triathlon is kind of at the bottom, and just the basic operation of what we're doing is at the top. It's a race. It's a race. Is it a short race or is it a long race? It's a long race. Okay, we're in a long race. So the virtues I need to bring, number one is endurance. I have to be patient. I got to cultivate patience. Number 2, determination. It's a demanding physical effort. So I'm going to need willpower to just, when I want to quit, because I'm going to want to quit, I have to press forward. I have to press forward. Number 3, resiliency. It's going to be problems and unforeseen adversity. I've got to be able to move through it. I have to be able to problem solve too. So I got to be resilient and adaptable. And then finally, the technical elements. So it's a long race in 3 different disciplines with so many different variables at play. If I can be technically proficient or technically competent in these disciplines, it's going to ease my effort overall. So I'm not going to be struggling in any one of these components, which is going to allow me to keep my wits and my heart about me throughout the entire effort, right? So by simply thinking more about like the virtues and the way in which I got to bring body, mind, and spirit to the event, I actually gain a much more holistic and appropriate sense of how I need to train myself up in order to complete this event how I want to do it. So it's also important to set your goal. So you want an objective goal and you want a subjective goal when it comes to these big physical challenges. And the objective goal is kind of like my time. And when it comes to my time, I have a very wide parameter of what I think I'm going to be able to hit. So number 1 is finish, right? You want to finish the race. You want to complete the race. Number 2, you want to complete it in a way that is reflective of your fitness and of your skill level in these sports. So when it comes to swimming and biking, I can do them, but I don't have a lot of experience. I don't have a lot of experience in them as training pursuits. I have a ton of experience. In running. So I've got kind of a higher threshold in terms of my objective performance when it comes to running, but I've got some pretty wide variance when it comes to biking. So I have this really loose objective parameter because for me, this 70.3 is really just the testing grounds for the big triathlon I'm doing later in the year, which is the full Ironman in November. The full Ironman, that's something I need to take a little bit more seriously in terms of preparation, but this 70.3 is going to be a bit of an experiment. So that's another way in which I am allowing this philosophy to guide me. I recognize that this race is half the distance of another race that I have to do later on. So I may as well utilize this as educational experience as opposed to thinking of it as the thing entirely. So this then allows my whole approach for this race to be one of mystery and wonderment and adventure and exploration, and I can release a lot of that objective pressure on myself. So it's kind of like finish, don't be the slowest person, and then I get to the subjective. So I've got this large objective window in terms of time, but subjectively, I've got a pretty narrow range of what I want to accomplish. I want to feel good. I want to feel smooth. I want to feel confident, and I want to feel in control all day. And that has nothing to do with timing, although it's possible timing comes into play at some point to help corroborate if I'm feeling good and if I'm moving well. But ultimately, like, I want to show up. I want to bring positive energy. I want to be excited about the challenge. I want to be in good health. And I want to interrogate each of these disciplines. I want to interrogate the transition. I want to interrogate the entire effort. And so subjectively, I just want to show up in good shape, and I want to have a race that doesn't leave me physically like wondering why the heck I signed up for this race, effectively. Okay. So I've got a goal, I have sort of an orientation and a target, and I have an understanding of what this race is going to bring for me. So then, and only then, do I really start aiming my training specifically towards taking down this race. So if I scroll down a little bit here, the way that my training is going to sort of be informed is by those lists of virtues. So what's the first thing that I mentioned? What's the first thing that I mentioned? It's endurance. I just need to be able to go for a long time. I just need to be able to go for a long time. You know, for a lot of people who sign up for these races, it's the first time they're doing a big endurance event. And you're thinking, the race is going to be how long? 6 hours long? 7 hours long? 8 hours? You're going to be able to move for 8 hours in a row? I'm not worried about that. You know, I've got a history of ultra running. So I've been in multiple competitions that have gone longer than the 70.3 in terms of time. Okay. So even though I haven't, you know, covered 56 miles on a bike after I did 1.2 miles of swimming and then running a half marathon after that, I've been in competitions for over 20 hours, right? I've been out in nature for 15 hours and 16 hours, right? Just back in January, I was out in the desert in Arizona for a 50-mile trail race that took 14 and a half hours, and I was dead dog sick for the entire time. So I'm not worried about being out. I'm not worried about my body not having the endurance capacity to make it through the race. So I already have the big thing checked off. You know, this is why the Ironman is a little bit more daunting, because the Ironman could be 15, 16 hours. And that's about the threshold in terms of time that I've been, you know, being in a competition. And then I'm into disciplines I haven't necessarily been in. So that's why it's a little bit trickier for me. But the 70.3, this is, you know, my wide range of time, somewhere around whatever, like 5 to 7 hours. Like, I don't even know. I'm total new to this. I don't expect it to be longer than 6.5, but it could be. And I don't expect it to be faster than 6, realistically. But I don't know. Could be. Who knows? Could just be the day of my life. But the one thing that I need the most, the ability to keep going, I have that experience. So I don't need to worry particularly about, I got to have so many hours of training a week. I have to have so much volume of running. I have to have so much volume on the bike. That is for people who have not necessarily approached this endurance space before. That's just not my context. So I'm not worried about volume. I'm worried about that muscle. I'm worried about that, oh my gosh, this is getting hard and I want to quit. I'm worried about that. So when I am training, that is the thing that I want to bring out the most, okay? So the next part is put myself in as many uncomfortable situations in training as possible. And this is sort of training that determination and resiliency together, right? That idea that it's going to be physically difficult. I'm going to be in a lot of discomfort and I'm going to have to figure out how to keep going. And then there's also going to be unforeseen variables that are going to provide adversity that it's not even on my radar right now, but I'm going to have to deal with in real time. At the same time, I'm physically hurting and I want to quit. Okay? So I need to train this resiliency and determination together. And that doesn't happen in the comforts of a home gym. That doesn't happen in the comforts of a trainer. That doesn't happen in the comforts of a treadmill. That happens out there in all of the conditions, in all of the weather, in all the muck as possible. You know, I'm a trail runner. So one of the things I love about trail running is that no trail is ever the same. So if it's snowy, if it's icy, if it's raining, if there's mud, if it's dry, like if it's hot, if it's like it doesn't matter. I go. I go out there because I need to be put in as many different positions as possible so that when I get into race day, if it's like if it's somewhat of a solid day, a good day, I'm gonna be laughing because I go out in the worst conditions. And the thing that is giving me so much confidence right now is that I've been biking in some truly spectacular conditions for this point in terms of what we'll call compromised training, right? Um, I'm talking like we're biking in the 30s. Like it's 35 degrees outside. I'm putting on my ski mitts. I'm putting on like 5 layers, as aerodynamic layers as I possibly can, and I'm getting smashed in the face. Not just with the wind that's coming from the speed of the bike, but I live in Chicago. I don't know if you guys have heard. Chicago is the Windy City, and let me tell you what. Holy moly, is that ever not strong enough of a nickname for this place? I can't even believe how windy it is all the time. It's unbelievable, And I live very close to the lake, and the lake is the thing that generates the wind. It pulls in the wind currents, right, and it whips right to the lake. And this bike trail, I'm very fortunate to have a beautiful outdoor bike trail that goes for miles and miles and miles. But I'm just getting smoked with crosswind the whole time. The wind is seemingly always in my face, never not in my face. So I'm getting smoked with the wind, even if it's a great day like it was yesterday and I was out biking for an hour and 50 minutes on this trail. I almost got blown off my bike a couple times because the wind gusts were up to like 30, 35, 40 mile an hour wind gusts. And that's just on top of the ever present wind. And then if you do that in 34, 35, 36 degree weather, because what's interesting about Chicago, it's cold, it's really cold, but there's not a lot of snow. So you get this beautiful, bare, salt-free bike track that goes for like 30 miles, but it's 28 degrees. Perfect, 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 right? Because when I'm racing in Chattanooga, in Tennessee, in May, it's not going to be cold. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. That's a different challenge, but I'm going to love that. All I'm going to be thinking about is, thank goodness I don't have to wear ski mitts. Thank goodness I'm not getting destroyed by freezing cold wind that is making my teeth hurt. That is making my teeth hurt. This is one of the reasons I run on the beach too. Like strengthen up those foot muscles, but also like sand doesn't give. Sand is resistance. I could run in super shoes on the treadmill. I could run in super shoes on the road, but like all that's doing is like setting me up for a little bit of a fall, because when I'm running off the bike after swimming, my legs are going to be dog. And a lot of people will do brick workouts, and that's great. And I'm going to do some brick workouts too, which is where you run off the bike. But that's not enough. It's not enough. And these long runs on the beach, these trail runs in snow and in mud, also in like these wicked weather conditions, like whatever gets thrown my way, conditions wise, variable wise on race day, I'm ready. I'm ready for it, and I don't even know what it's going to be, but I'm ready because I train in a way that I believe is just much more brutal. We'll say brutal. And that's what I need. The race is going to challenge me. It's going to test me, right? And then finally, it's the technicality. So then after I'm like, okay, so I just need to keep my frequency up, right? I just need to be training so that I can keep going. And I've got to be training in ways that are very uncomfortable, that force my mind into this. I don't even want to go. I don't even want to do this. And then when you do it, you're like, yeah, I conquered that. That was awesome. That was awesome. So then finally it's technicality. Finally it's technicality. And the way that I'm approaching this, because it's a bit of an experiment, it's like, I don't need to be excellent. I don't need to be excellent in swimming. I don't need to be excellent in biking. I'm already really good at running. Like running, I got that covered. I'm a solid runner, okay? So I don't need to really train hard to be really good in one of these disciplines. I've just been trail running for the past 13 years, and I've been in races, and I'm just confident in running. So I have to make sure I'm competent. I have to make sure I'm competent in every sport. And this actually started last year. So technically, then, what do my weeks look like? Like, how do I think about breaking down how much I'm biking, how much I'm running, how much I'm swimming? Newsflash: I haven't been swimming at all. I swam last summer though. Okay, so when I knew that I was going to be doing the full Ironman, I wanted to get in the pool, and I wanted to get in the pool just to remind myself of swimming. So I wouldn't say that I'm like an excellent swimmer, but I'm a competent swimmer. Like, I took swim lessons all the way up to taking my lifeguard certification when I was young. I had a pool growing up, so I know how to move in the water. Um, and I just wanted to get into the water and see what it would be like to just swim, to just swim. So last year, I'm in these beautiful outdoor pools that we have here in the North Shore, and my only goal was to, like, I want to see what it's like to freestyle for an hour, and I don't want to look at my watch once. So I want to know what it's like to be lost underwater without a sense of time, and to just feel what a nice, easy pace can get. So, I'm not wearing a swim cap. I got so much drag in the pool. It's crazy, guys. Right? I'm not wearing a swim cap, and I'm moving for an hour, and my heart rate is zone one, and I'm coming in at like 155. Sorry, blah, 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 1 minute and 55 seconds per 100 meters, which is not super fast, but like that's competent. You put me in a downriver swim in Chattanooga with a buoyant wetsuit and a swim cap, I'm gonna go quick, right? It's not that long of a swim. I can swim. I can swim the 2.4 miles, no problem, of the Ironman, let alone the half distance of the 70.3. So really, it's like, what is the thing I need most? It's biking. And it's not to say I'm a bad cyclist. It's just I don't have the endurance capacity when it comes to cycling. And that's not to say I don't have like the wind or even the leg strength. It's more about, is my body comfortable? Does my body know what to do when I'm sitting on a bike for 3 hours, and can it figure out how to keep going at a good pace? Right? Um, I have a lot of history with swimming. When I was a prof, I would swim 3 times a week at the university in between my lectures. So I have training history in swimming. I don't have a lot of training history in biking. So I've really been focusing a lot on frequency, just getting on the bike. It was 1 time a week in the summer. Then it was up to 2 times a week. Then snow hit, and I stopped, and I had plans of setting up my indoor trainer so that I could still get touches. But it was kind of weird because there was just no snow. So I would be biking in December outside on this bike path, and then there'd be snow for maybe 2 weeks in January, but then it would all melt. So I was actually outdoor biking in January, and I was outdoor biking in February. And now that we're in March, right, it's 2 times a week, and it's 2.5. I set this floor goal of 2.5 hour minimum, and now I'm kind of at like 3 hours, 3.5 hours a week, looking to get up to these bigger rides. And I'm just training myself to sit on the bike. That's all I'm doing, is to sit on the bike and to feel comfortable and to train those sit muscles and to get into proper position. I don't really care about speed. I don't really care about much other than just getting the consistent, competent touches on this bike and doing it outside in the wind, having to dodge through, traffic, pedestrians. It's a bit of a windy track, so you've got to master your angles and your turns. It's relatively hilly, not like giant hills, but it's not consistently flat. So it's this really great outdoor bike path that is teaching me to be a great outdoor cyclist. And guess what, guys? The race doesn't happen on a trainer. The race happens outside. So the race itself is going to be, I think, a little bit easier because I'm not going to be hopeful. You never know because the weather is the weather. I'm hopefully not going to be dealing with a windy day down in Tennessee, but I feel like a windy day down in Chattanooga is going to be a normal day in Chicago, right? I'm not going to have a stop sign every 4 miles. I'm not going to be dodging pedestrians. I'm not going to have to stop at a red light. One of the things that's apparent to me in biking this bike path over and over is I do not get into a flow. Biking is an amazing place to find flow. Like when you're on a stationary bike inside and you're just churning your legs, you end up with this like wheel of momentum. Inertia really takes over, and what's the cliches? You just put your head down and you go. I cannot do that on a bike path with pedestrians and stop signs and red lights and all the and cars and all these things. Like I might get 10 seconds of churn. I might get 10 seconds of flow before I got to look up and say, "Oh no, there's a pedestrian. I got to slow down." And I'm not one of these cyclists who thinks that the bike path exists for my numbers. Like a lot of the cyclists on this path who they don't bother to slow down when they cross a pedestrian, or like they're just biking in very reckless ways, and I don't do that. I'm not interested in that. If I got to slow down to a crawl so that we can share the bike path, like we're all there together. It's not my bike path. So I very rarely get this chance to experience like good bike flow. But if I'm going to be on a road course that's blocked off by cop cars and I'm just going to be with all these other cyclists, oh, I'm going to find some flow, and I'm also going to go. And here's another thing about the biking. And this sort of gets you into the mindset of this idea of like compromised training or intuitive training. I am a fasted exerciser. Like I do intermittent fasting, 20 to 21 hours every single day. And I do my exercise at the end of the window. And this is not something that I just like consciously designed. It just sort of evolved as my own style over the 13 plus years that I've kind of been doing this. And that's led me to put up some pretty incredible fasted runs where like I'm not fueled, and then I go out and I don't take food and I don't take water with me on the run. I've done a trail marathon, I've done a suburban half trail marathon, a half road marathon doing this. And biking requires a lot of fuel. So when you're biking and you're using all that leg power, you need a lot of fuel. And you should be practicing taking fuel on the bike, but I'm not. I want to see if I can bike for 2 hours at a pretty solid clip without water or without food, so that I can be so well prepared on race day where I will fuel. And I've never had gut issues early on in any of these races. Whenever I've had a gut issue, it's like 16, 17 hours into the event. And it's not so much related just to my stomach, but it's a little bit more related to some kidney issues, which are underneath the stomach. So even then, I don't really think a gut issue is ever taking me out. So I'm not worried about fueling. I got a pretty strong gut. And if I know in myself that I can probably do the whole thing without ever taking a sip of water, man, I'm going to be riding high when my body is like filled up with electrolytes and I'm drinking water and I've got fuel on the bike. Like it's going to be a party. It's going to be a party on the bike. And that's just how I start to create these constellations. So what does each week look like? Well, I've got a system that's already made me like a very accomplished endurance athlete, which is, run 3 to 4 times a week, all trails. When you're not running, you're doing cross training and strength. So the one thing that's taken a hit is the strength cross training, but biking is kind of its own cross training for running in terms of the way you're using your leg muscles. So that's been that's been at least compensatory. So what I've really been doing is like swapping out one of these resistance sessions for a bike. And adding biking as I go. It's really this just like week by week progression of, can we bike as much as we did last week? Can we bike a little bit more? Can we get on the bike one more time? Can we make sure that our legs are feeling good and strong? Like I don't want nagging injuries. I had a little bit of a nagging glute, hip, back thing, but that's gone away with some additional strength work and stretching work. But ultimately, like I'm very confident moving into competition day just based on what I'm doing. Slowly adding in the disciplines, slowly upping the frequency and the volume of the disciplines. And there's one thing, like I mentioned, I haven't been swimming and I don't plan to swim. And I don't plan to swim until I get back from a big trip that I'm taking with my kids. I'm taking them to Canada, as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, to go visit family. one of the big stumbling blocks to this build has been finding an adequate indoor pool, which is one of the things that a lot of people struggle with. I am not going to struggle for swimming in the summer because I have beautiful outdoor lanes that are 5-minute drive from my house, and I also have big, beautiful Lake Michigan to practice some open water swimming. And I mentioned off the top this Tennessee swim. It's downriver. It's also a high probability that it's going to get canceled because of the high flow rate of the Tennessee River. This is a swim that is maybe 2-to-1 canceled versus run. So there's a good chance I won't even have to do the swim. I'm also not worried about the distance of the swim. The only thing that I'm worried about at all is like, how do I swim in a wetsuit? So what do I have to do? I just got to get a wetsuit, and I got to practice putting the wetsuit on and swimming in the wetsuit. So in Canada, I'm going to buy my wetsuit. I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to join an indoor gym for maybe an indoor pool, probably the Y, for a month or so. And I'm going to try to get 3 to 4 swimming sessions in where I'm just practicing freestyle in the wetsuit, so that when I jump into the river, if I do have to jump into the river, I'm going to feel very confident that I can maneuver and move in this wetsuit. My strategy is also not to like swim in the middle. This is where being a part of Team Tribal is very helpful, because this is a team race. I'm doing it with 20 plus athletes, and I was at this race last year coaching. And I've gained a few tips on this particular course on how to do it. In particular for the swim, you can get to the outside, right? So I can get to the far outside where there's not going to be a lot of people. And one of the things I'm a little hesitant about with the open water swim with all these people is getting kicked, is getting hit, which is going to happen. But if I can move out to the far side, I can swim my own pace. I don't have to worry about people. I don't really care about the swim time. I just want to make sure I can get over that first initial, we're in the open water and we're swimming, then we'll be fine. But quite honestly, I'm still not necessarily worried about that. I've done a lot of open water swimming in my life. I mean, camping, Canada, lakes, do the math. We've done a lot of open water swimming. So I'm not super worried about that. It's more like oh my gosh, I'm in the open water with all these other people. So if I can just get over that initial hump, I can float down the river, and I can be comfortable and confident in my wetsuit. And that's going to prepare me and open me up for the ways in which I'm going to have to train for the Ironman, which is really what this whole 70.3 is about. It's about, okay, triathlon. What's triathlon about? What is endurance triathlon all about? What's the swimming portion like? What's the biking portion like? What's the running portion like? Okay, you just did half of what you have to do in November, and that's going to really inform how I want to train for the Ironman. I also have another competition in the middle, which is the Backyard Ultra, which is a pure running race. So we're going to see how training evolves. But in terms of like my mind and the big things that I need to hit in order to feel confident, it's something like 2.5 hours straight on the bike without fuel, figuring out what I want to do for fuel on the bike. So my initial thought right now is fill up one giant water bottle with liquid fuel, have that for about 2 hours, take water, and take extra calories in the aid stations, which I'm going to pass 3 of them, which means I'm going to get a chance to get water 3 times. I'll have my own fuel source, but I'll also be able to grab some of the liquid fuel that they're providing on the course. That should be enough for me. So I really just have to practice with the liquid fuel source once or twice. I take a water bottle on my bike right now, and I practice in motion, taking it out of the cage, and so I can do that too. So that's not a problem. I'm not going to add any equipment to my bike. I've decided to just see what it's like to basically have an off-the-rack road bike, which is not even, it's like the lowest nice road bike, the model. I don't care about getting super aero. I'm going to see about what it's like in this race, and then I'll let that inform me about what I might want to purchase for my bike for the next Ironman, because I like cycling, but I don't want to be a cyclist, and I'd rather not put a ton of money into 1 or 2 races because I'm not interested in maxing out bike speed. I'm interested in doing well on the bike and being competent, but I don't know how much extra I want to spend on the bike itself. Like, the bike is going to be a great bike for me. I'm going to be riding it for the next like 20 years. So the bike itself is a great investment. I don't know how many triathlons I'm going to do. I might find out after this triathlon, like, I'm addicted and I'm going to go and deck this bike out or buy a tri bike or who knows, right? So I don't want to put too much of an investment onto this particular bike. I want to see what it's like to race on it. So biking, that's kind of like where I'm at. Running, a couple half marathons barefoot on the beach. I'll be good. Which I did my first long run on the beach last week. It was 9 miles. It was great. We're going to try to go 10 or 11 miles this week. And then my standard for, I think, the entire summer is going to be half marathon, long run, Sunday morning, Saturday morning, barefoot on the beach. And then we'll start to tinker around with times and pacing. I do want to set a new PR in that. Last year, I wanted to get the average for the whole effort just under 8. And I think it was like 750 something. See if I can get into 740s. Running barefoot half marathon on the beach. That'd be pretty sweet. Swimming, as I mentioned, it's literally just get in the pool and swim the distance with the wetsuit on a couple times. Maybe I'll practice some transition stuff. Probably not. But ultimately, like, with the way I've aimed myself at this race, with the subjective and the objective goals that I have, I feel really confident. And the reason I feel confident is because I have the endurance base and because I'm not going to quit when things get hard. Sure, could I figure out a way to bike like 20 minutes faster? Could I figure out a way to swim 5 minutes quicker? Could I figure out a way to run at a more appropriate pace for my skill level? Yes, almost certainly. Could I have done this all with more dedicated and structured tri training? 100%. Absolutely. That's not in question. But training fits in my life as an expression of who I am. Training is not something I do to become very good at the sport. Training is something I do to fulfill an internal desire to bring the best of myself out. I'm at my best when I'm pushing myself physically. I'm at my best when I am involved in sports that I love. And I love sports that move me physically. Like, I've always been biking, I've always been swimming, and I've always been running. I've never done them together. So this is the first time that I'm bringing disparate elements of myself together into one grand play. That's very cool. So it's an exploration of self. It's an expression of self. And I don't want the training to become mechanized because it's a more serious style of competition, and most people have very mechanized training in this sport. That's great, and I'm not suggesting that's the wrong approach or a bad approach. That's just not the approach that will bring me the most meaning. The most meaning in this race comes from me bringing my own unique style, my own kind of like punk rock ethos to training, where I don't necessarily need to know why the notes go together. I just need to know that they go together when I play them, and I enjoy that. Right? And that is opening me up and exposing me to a tremendous amount of vulnerability. Like, here I am saying I don't need to really train like a triathlete in order to do this. What if I blow up? What if I don't finish the race? Well, then my style is invalidated. Then I've learned a tremendous value. I've learned something tremendous about my own process that maybe it's not as repeatable in other disciplines as I had thought. Maybe it's something that really only works in like the ultra marathoning space. Okay. Or in setting subjective goals in the gym. That's fine. Maybe it doesn't work for a more seriously regimented training style that the Ironman demands. I'm willing to be exposed. I'm willing to learn. That's fine. But I'd rather learn the lesson myself than preemptively think what I've been doing is not good enough and I immediately need to change. I would love to vibe train. Did I just coin a new term? I think I did. I'd love to vibe train my way to the entire Ironman if I could. Like, that would be the really cool goal. To basically say, yeah, I think I can jigsaw my way to training to become an Ironman without explicit outside help. I have a ton of implicit help. Like, I coach on an endurance training team, and the head coach qualified and did Ironman World Championships. So I've just by being around this team, I know a lot about triathlon and what it takes to be successful. And I'm in a great amount of debt to every single triathlete on tribal training who's gone before me, who I've talked with, who I've seen in competition, and in a tremendous amount of debt to Coach Ryan. Coach Ryan is not responsible for my race result. He's not training me. He's not responsible for my race result. But he is going to be a tremendous influence, and he's going to be one of the biggest reasons why I will cross the finish line. But I didn't ask him to train me, and I didn't ask anybody on the team for specific advice here, because I want to see if my own weird, kooky way of doing fitness can be repeatable. And to me, that's more meaningful than anything. And this is how I know that the race is the right race at the right time. It's the right aim, because I'm not being forced to change and alter myself. I'm being forced to refine and bring a better version of myself, And it may come out that in this experience, it wasn't enough. And boy, howdy, I'll be grateful to know that. And I'll be grateful as an athlete, and I'll be grateful as a coach to know the outcome of this wild triathlon experiment, because I just think it's more fun this way. And fun is a big time spiritual signal that we're doing the right thing. And I think that's a great place to end this guy off. This is a really cool exposition of my philosophy in deep practice. This is me living out what I am telling you should want from fitness. You should want it to be connected to your spirit. You should want it to be a creative passion in your life. You should want it to be an expression of self that is a form of problem solving with your own particular virtues, your own particular character strengths. You want to be able to set the course in front of you so that you can gain the things that you want outside of the training, whatever that is. And it's very difficult for somebody on the outside to figure out what's on the inside for you. So training in this way actually helps you know yourself better. It helps bring about that internal knowledge, because when you start training from this intuition, what you're doing is you're activating the inner signal. You're activating that deep inner voice, which is drowned out by distractions, which is oftentimes drowned out by an expert who's ahead of you telling you this is how you've got to get it done in order to do what I did. And this is just one of the flaws of expertise. Experts are great. And believe me, I was an expert, big time an expert. But you end up kind of like imprisoned into your own expertise, because it's hard for you to imagine other people getting good results with anything other than the thing that you've used to get your own good results. And so as an, oh my gosh, it's all meta. As an expert in this weird, creative, intuitive, imaginative style of training where we're thinking about virtues and we're trying to think about character traits, and we're not so much interested in the actual physicality of what we're doing. Physicality kind of takes care of itself. As an expert in this style of training, what I'm actually now doing is exposing this. I'm exposing myself to the risks of the arena and saying, I think this training style is repeatable. I think this training style, you can build on it. It can compound, so I can train like this for years and years, and all it's going to do is open up more opportunities for me. So I haven't trained in triathlon, but because I've been training and running for so long, and I've been utilizing this kind of improvisational style of training, it's not very difficult for me to extend that into a bigger competition, 3 sports instead of 1. But because I understand the virtues, because I understand what I'm going to be asked to do in body, mind, and spirit combined, it's just a simple extension, or I hope it's just a simple extension. Otherwise, I'm in for a big time slice of cold humble pie on race day. But that's one of the reasons we should be grateful for the race. That's one of the reasons we should be grateful for the competition. So it can expose us to the truth. And as I always say, team, the truth is in the training. All right, I'm going to cap this one because I got to get to the beach. Barefoot run. It is mile challenge day for Team Tribal. If at all, through listening to this, you have got the itch to test yourself in one of these big time endurance races, hit the tribal training link in the show notes. Come join the team. If you want to take on something big, but you're not so sure that you need the big time race like that, but maybe you want a community, that's the temple. That's my group coaching. If you are listening to this and thinking, man, I love this idea of training. This idea of training would be exactly the right fit for me right now because I am struggling to find consistency, or I used to have consistency and I feel it slipping, or I just want to get in the gym and I've tried a whole bunch of things and nothing has worked. This sounds great. I'd love to try this. One-on-one coaching. Hit me up. I'm open. Thanks for listening, team. Thank you for the people on Substack Live who've tuned in today. I really appreciate you guys hanging around and asking questions. I'm really loving this sort of live simulcast. We're going to keep it going. I have a very exciting podcast guest lined up for, I think it's like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So we'll have a couple solo episodes in between, but something big is coming in the hopper. I appreciate every one of you for listening. If you liked what you heard, you can always show me the love by dropping me a review, 5 stars. Hey, if that's on your heart, I'm happy to receive it. Otherwise, we're going to see you in the next one. Peace and love. Let's win together, team.